Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something.
So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion No Last Necessary, your Get You Right guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to A, expand your thinking, and B, to aid you in becoming a better version of yourself, for yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I'll never rob you of your right to feel what you feel, same way I won't sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can operate as your highest and best self. If you're new here, we start each episode with affirmations to ensure that regardless of what we discuss and how it may make you feel, we have intentionally started on the highest possible vibration and correct frequency. So you ready? Let's shift the energy upward. You're always welcome to repeat after me or to use this time to state your own affirmations. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I am safe. I am secure. I am understood. There is room for me. There is room for how I feel. My feelings matter. My feelings matter to others. I am handled with care. I am covered. I am protected. I am at peace. Ashe, ashe, ashe. So passionates, I'm thinking about times in my life where I was navigating hurt and or trauma. And I'm reflecting on how effectively or ineffectively I went about it. There were times when I blamed everyone and everything, and I felt particularly justified in my actions. There were times, and this is still true a lot of the times, where I took all the blame. And that was irrespective of anyone else's participation or contribution. Now, while I had people around me who would try to discourage me from taking on that responsibility, it made the most sense to me because I felt like had I not been in the situation, what resulted in the situation either would not have happened or I wouldn't have been impacted in the way I was. One of my coping mechanisms, and I don't know if this is more of a coping mechanism or a reaction, but my response would then be to shut down. And I definitely still do that. If I feel like I'm not understood, I'm only going to explain myself, but so many times before I just have nothing left to say. And I'll explain it as many ways as I can before I lose my patience or my interest. But after I hit that point, I'm done with it. If I feel like what I have to offer isn't being valued at some point, I'll either withdraw my offering or I'll withdraw myself altogether. Now, are these healthy responses? Of course not. But truth and transparency are critical to growth. So I'm taking this moment to be honest with myself, about myself, and I am believing that you are doing the same. And we move forward. Passionates, are you particular about what you put on your skin and what you put in your hair? If you're anything like me, you're very specific about the ingredients of the products that you're using. And my good sis, LaShondra, has a product that's probably perfect for you. She calls it LaShondra's Essentials Strengthening and Nourishing Hair and Body Oil. And she infuses actual herbs into the oil. Let me give you, I have my phone in my hand because the list of of benefits of this product is so long. So I need to make sure that I tell you all of the things that it's good for. So if you have issues with eczema, psoriasis, alopecia, dermatitis, dry hair or scalp, dry skin, excess shedding and hair breakage, dark spots, brightening under eye circles, fading stretch marks, if you have burns or you have scars, this is the product for you, and it can be used as a massage oil or a beard oil. Now, I don't know how many products you have available to you that you can do all of that with, but I know for a fact that this product does that and more. I have used it. I stand by it. I am a fan of it. It takes only a drop. And the best part of this whole announcement is that my sis has been so gracious as to extend a 20% off offer for my passionates. And the code that you need to use is passionate for y'all. So head on over to her Etsy, etsy.com/shop/LaShandra's Essentials. You can use my discount code passionate for 20% off. If you did not want to go that route, you wanted to just go to the link below in the description box, do that, click the link, and the discount code is already applied as soon as you click the link. She also offers CMOS, so get into it. Go check out her site. Go check out her product, and thank me later. Let's get back to the episode. So in those times where I felt misunderstood or I felt like the oddball and it made me uncomfortable, I would then insulate myself. My logic was very simple. If I keep my distance, no one can misunderstand me and I don't have to explain and re-explain myself. Even if I don't intentionally keep my distance, but I only let you get so close, I don't have to go through the hardship of bridging the communication gap or the discomfort of trying to make someone understand me, because that's an uncomfortable space. Trying to make someone understand you when you're not speaking a foreign language can definitely make you feel like an alien. And that was particularly challenging for me when I would go out of my way to understand the other person and make accommodations for their nuances and particularities, but there was no perceived reciprocity in that for me. So before I go further, I think that this is a great place for one of my favorite beat drops. What a dictionary definition. That's what passion takes action towards. Show your vocab is expanded. If you know the word is cool, know the meaning even better than the segment, just a moment of enhancement. And let's go over some dictionary definitions. So according to Merriam-Webster, insulate is a transitive verb, which means to place in a detached situation. Isolate. Personally, I feel like lexico.com, which is powered by Oxford, and this is not a sponsorship plug, although I wouldn't mind being sponsored. Holla at me. I think they give a better definition. So their definition 1.2 is protect from the unpleasant effects or elements of something. Now, going back to Merriam-Webster, isolate in the transitive verb sense means 1, to set apart from others, 2, to select from among others, 3, insulate. Lexico.com, on the other hand, says cause a person or place to be or remain alone or apart from others. 1.1 is to place a person or animal in quarantine to prevent the spread of an infectious disease. 1.2, remain apart from others for a period of time, especially in order to avoid catching or transmitting an infectious disease. Okay, so why the dictionary definitions break? Well, 1, the beat is fire, so shouts to Purple Chrome for that. But 2, I think that when we experience hurt, trauma, disappointment, displeasure, or whatever's the case, in an effort to protect ourselves from additional hurt or trauma, we attempt to insulate ourselves as protection from unpleasantries, but we sometimes inadvertently and sometimes not so inadvertently isolate ourselves. And while that removal or separation feels good because we don't have to deal with people out here being peoply, alone can turn into lonely real quick. Alone, you just by yourself. While lonely has more of a melancholy connotation and employs the emotion of sadness as opposed to just enumerating the present parties. I think sometimes we work so diligently at protecting ourselves from certain aspects of people that we tend to rob ourselves of other qualities or even data those people have to offer. Now, of course, if they've been offering pupukaka all this time, we're not especially interested in any more of their offerings, and rightly so. But sometimes it's not even about what they have to offer as much as it is what we can or are supposed to glean from these people. Now, be reminded that a lot of what we're supposed to learn from others is not about them at all. It's actually a lesson in self. It's not about whether this one is a liar or that one is a thief. It's how do I respond to these behavior patterns? I've encountered this type of person before. When I dealt with them, or when I dealt with them in this way, I got this result. Was this the best result? What can I or should I do differently? Last time, I flipped my lid. This time, my answer is silence. Last time, I said nothing and it bothered me every day. So this time, I'll do this instead, right? And we'll go from there. Now, there are different ways to insulate oneself. We can insulate by creating a community of few that we feel really get us and refuse to deal with others. And while that feels safe in the moment and can even appear safe in the long term, people change. So while you're part of my insular community today, and yes, insular has multiple definitions, but in this instance, we're talking about the lack of contact with others. While you're part of this nucleus that I've created, that only serves me as long as you don't grow past where I am and leave me behind. You do grow, but you leave room for me to grow, or I grow and I can still vibe with you where you are. And so often, that's not the case, because in a transient world, nothing is permanent, and the only thing guaranteed is transition. When I was in my darkest place of no one understands what I feel, no one understands what I'm going through, and no one really cares, I insulated myself with books. I went to Borders or Barnes and Nobles or both every payday, and I got paid weekly. I went every payday and I bought books, specifically fiction, because I could participate in these people's worlds, and there was always room for me. Whether or not they understood me, and of course, obviously they didn't understand me because these were fictional characters who were not observing me. I was observing them, but whether or not they understood me didn't matter, because their lives allowed me to escape my own, coming back to this escapism that we talk about so often. Some people get lost in the digital world. Some people get lost in their own minds. And I think that's where the isolation begins. Again, before I go further, let me preface this by saying that if you know about Song to Yourself Saturday, you know that I am a huge proponent of embracing and enjoying your own company. And one of the reasons I always list is if no one else was around, you'd only have you. And I stand by that. However, it's one thing to enjoy your own company and something very different to be in a space where your own company is all you can handle because you refuse or are now unable to tolerate anything outside of yourself for too long. That said, the self-inflicted isolation begins where we're choosing to be, where we don't have to deal with others, but the loneliness sets in after we've created this zone where no one could enter, and slowly but surely, they stop trying. You wanted them at bay, and now you're feeling the impact of the absence because too often, when trying to protect ourselves, we hurt others. Keep pushing someone away, eventually they're going to stop coming around. I knew someone years ago who would literally just disappear from the face of the earth for months or years at a time. She'd leave the apartment, no forwarding address, phone disconnected. And then a few years later, I'd see her and she would be moving like if we just saw each other last week. And I remember her saying to me that she didn't understand why people couldn't just let her be. She felt like she should be able to disappear and reappear at random and never considered the impact that it was having on the people she was disappearing from. She didn't consider whether they were worried. She didn't consider whether they felt abandoned. Her only concern was, I'm here now. That's nice. And while you were gone, people had to learn to live without you. They assumed you weren't coming back because for so long, you didn't come back. You didn't look back. You didn't think back or think about how you fit into their lives. So at the point where you no longer fit or you fit very differently, this is no longer about how or why they can't accept you as you are. Quite the contrary. They absolutely have accepted you as you are and recognize that your presence is fleeting. So they treat you like the wind you blew in on, knowing or believing that you'll blow away again soon. So while she felt abandoned by her friends and felt like they weren't good to her, by her movement, she was isolating herself and then faulting others for her loneliness. Someone else I know says all the time that they feel alone. In the same paragraph, they also say they're fine not talking to anyone for days and being by themselves. It's the same application. What they're feeling is loneliness. But say that and the immediate response is, I'm not lonely. I got friends. I got plenty of people to talk to. And when you're quick to defend something that's not being challenged, when you're in a hurry to be right, when no one said you were wrong, often the impression left is that you're really unconsciously trying to divert the person's attention because they are indeed right, and you don't want to be that vulnerable or visible. And if the follow-up to that is, I'm just telling you, or I'm just letting you know, or I'm just clarifying, ask yourself why you responded in such a defensive tone if you didn't feel like you needed to defend something. Well, back to this other person. The conversation has been, no one's coming together like they used to, and things aren't the same because of X, Y, and Z. And while that may be true, they're also not making any efforts to bring everyone together. And the current excuse is Corona, which a lot of people lean on, right? And while some have a legit leg to stand on, they only leave their home to grocery shop. They buy their own everything. They wash everything before they bring it in the house. If food delivery services bring you your meals every day, and strangers that you are not supervising are preparing your meals every day, strangers are doing your grocery shopping, Amazon is at your door 3 to 5 times a week, and you're engaging in face-to-face contact with these delivery people, and you're not wearing a mask, and most of them aren't either, and you aren't sanitizing and disinfecting everything when it comes through the door, you're not that afraid of this virus. But the idea of staying in your little corner, right, isolating yourself because no one else is doing the work to try to fix what you feel is broken, number one, it's not going to fix anything. And number two, a new precedent is being set, and this gives everyone else the green light to isolate themselves too and offer excuses not to do the work. So this trickle of lonely slowly, but most definitely turns into a deluge. And while it's not necessarily one person's fault per se, everyone starts drowning in one form of isolation or another. So they begin to insulate to not feel the loneliness or emptiness of isolation, but that insulation can further isolate them. And now we're on a hamster wheel running in place, but not understanding why everybody else can't figure out where we're going. Somebody said to me that they don't care about anything. And it was understandable because they experienced trauma which triggered multiple other traumas. And they weren't prepared for any of it. So it was like they didn't want to care too deeply about anything in an effort to insulate themselves from being traumatized ever again. But in their insistence of insulating themselves against that kind of trauma, one, they started isolating themselves, and two, they started traumatizing others. And they didn't see it because most of us give ourselves passes for how we're negatively impacting people when we feel like the bulk of what we do for them is positive. Nonetheless, in an effort to not be afflicted by the behaviors of others, they began to inflict some very similar behaviors onto others. And of course, they didn't see the parallels and push those others away. Now, when it was people they didn't give a hoot about, they felt like those people were being purged because they were never or no longer supposed to be in their lives. Conversely, when it was people they did care about, they couldn't really justify it. So they shut down, went back to their insulation, and further isolated themselves. Folks, I have been on every side of this, okay? I've been the hurt person that hurt others. There were times when I was completely unaware of it. There were times when I knew and I didn't care. I have insulated myself because I couldn't cope with what was going on around me. until I finally changed what was going on within me. But that's another topic for another episode. There were times when I isolated myself because I didn't want to subject others to me, because I knew I was navigating some toxicity. There were times I isolated myself because it was easier to run and hide from people, because that's really what it is, than put the energy into either finding the common ground or exhausting all points and respectfully agreeing to disagree. And you probably have too. And if you say you haven't, well, I'm sure that there is someone who would happily challenge that. The point is, the world doesn't always feel like a safe place. And we all do what we need to create a safe haven for ourselves. Insulating ourselves and creating rubber bumpers around ourselves has a place. And it has an important place. But just be careful that while you're building this fortress of protection, that you don't build yourself in. Because if you think it was hard work to build this safe space where few could access you, but none could hurt you, just know that it's twice as hard to knock these walls down to get out. Most of us don't create exit strategies when we're not trying to exit. So we create more problems. We didn't want anyone to get in, so when we really need them to get in, while they might be willing, they may not know where and or how to start. You have some that are standing at the wall holding vigil, and they'll never leave. While some others, they're going to give up right before you're ready to let them in. The ones that are standing there, just because they've remained present, doesn't mean that they haven't changed inside. I just want you to consider all of it. Insulation is not just proofing. Just because a pipe has insulation around it doesn't mean it can't be damaged or can't break. And if you put insulation around a pipe that's already damaged, you're not insulating the pipe. You're insulating the damage. The damage will then continue to cause more damage in places that were fine and in no danger of being damaged. And if real repair work isn't done, everything falls apart. Then you really end up isolated, because who wants to try to rebuild a house that was reduced to rubble because you refused to fix a pipe that could have been repaired with some epoxy? Meditate on this, passionates. I welcome your comments, your questions, your concerns, and your commendations. Listener letters can be sent to mybrilliantfriendpassion@gmail.com. Whether you're viewing or listening on your preferred podcast platform, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, share. Help me help others help themselves. If you would like to be a financial contributor, donations can be made via Podbean, PayPal, Cash App, Linktree, or Zelle. All the links are in the description box. Every little bit helps. It all goes back into the pot. Your Get You Right Guru is signing off, y'all. Go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. Be mindful of the difference between insulating and isolating. Be mindful of the danger of insulating yourself to the point of isolation. Be mindful that the actions you take in your insulation still have impact, and you don't get to decide what that impact is. So even if the intention wasn't harm, the result still could be. If you're isolating yourself to protect others from you, if they mean something to you, let them know that. Let them know that, so there's room for you when you come back around. Plan your exit strategies and make sure to always build an escape route. No matter where you are, leave enough room for someone to get in and for you to get out. In all things, be passionate. See you later.